$2 million in my retirement account is gone, and my daughter-in-law is laughing about it on Instagram. I'm Harry Mitchell, 67 years old, retired special education teacher, and apparently the world's biggest fool. My own son just emptied my entire retirement account to fund his wife's shopping addiction. But here's what they don't know yet. Those disabled kids I taught for 40 years. They grew up to become lawyers, detectives, and federal agents. In chess, the quiet pawn sometimes becomes the most dangerous piece on the board. This story has more twists than my daughter-in-law has designer handbags. My retirement money was supposed to pay for scholarships for special needs students. Instead, it bought Louis Vuitton bags and jewelry for a woman who calls these kids genetic mistakes. But if you've ever underestimated someone because of their disability, or if you've ever been betrayed by family you trusted completely, hit subscribe. Because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about justice, family, and who really has your back when the world falls apart. It started on a Tuesday morning when I opened my bank statement and saw a number that made no sense whatsoever. Eleanor always said Kevin was our miracle baby. We tried for 15 years before he was born when I was 32. Maybe that's why we spoiled him. Maybe that's why we never saw the warning signs. I grew up poor in Milwaukee, the son of a janitor and a house cleaner. When I was 8 years old, a special education teacher named Mrs. Patterson saved me from being labeled a slow learner. She saw something in me that nobody else did. That's when I knew what I wanted to do with my life. Eleanor was a special ed teacher too. We met at a conference in 1987 and bonded over our shared mission. We both believed that every child deserves dignity, regardless of their abilities. We spent our honeymoon working at a summer camp for disabled kids. That's the kind of people we were. When Kevin was born, we were overjoyed. But growing up as a teacher's kid wasn't easy for him. Children can be cruel, and Kevin faced constant teasing about having the retard teachers as parents. Other kids' parents wouldn't let them come to our house because they might encounter one of our students. Kevin learned to be ashamed of what we did for a living. Eleanor died from ALS 5 years ago. I watched the woman I love slowly lose her ability to speak, to move, to breathe. It deepened my empathy for every disabled person I'd ever taught, but it also left me vulnerable and desperate for family connection. Kevin was all I had left. That's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. During Eleanor's illness, Kevin convinced me to add him to my bank accounts. "Just in case something happens to you too, Dad," he said. "I need to be able to help you manage things." It seemed reasonable. He was my only child, my only family. Kevin had tried teaching for 2 years after college, but he was terrible at it. He couldn't connect with the children. He quit and bounced between jobs, always asking for money. His wife Brittany was worse. She'd been the mean girl in high school and never grew out of it. She made it clear that she found my career embarrassing and my former students disgusting. But I loved them anyway. That was my weakness. After Eleanor died, I would have done anything to keep my remaining family close. I thought I knew my son. The first lie Kevin told me was about the emergency surgery. It was November 2022 when he called, panic in his voice. "Dad, I'm at Regional Hospital. Brittany collapsed at work. They need to operate immediately. Something with her appendix, but there are complications. I need $34,000 right now for the surgery, or she could die." I didn't hesitate. I drove straight to the bank and authorized the wire transfer. Patricia Williams, the bank manager, asked if I was sure about such a large amount. "It's for my daughter-in-law's surgery," I told her. "Family emergency." Over the next 6 months, Kevin called 4 more times. More complications, more surgeries. A specialist in Chicago. Experimental treatment. Each time I sent the money immediately. 40,000, 55,000, 78,000. I never questioned it because I trusted him completely. But when I saw Brittany posting shopping hauls on Instagram while supposedly recovering from major surgery, something clicked in my brain. Her posts showed designer handbags, expensive jewelry, luxury clothes. The timestamps showed she'd been shopping during the exact hours Kevin claimed she was in surgery. That's when I called Regional Hospital directly. "I'm trying to confirm the dates of my daughter-in-law's surgeries," I told the administrator. "Brittany Mitchell. She was a patient there multiple times between November 2022 and March 2023. The silence on the other end lasted too long. Sir, we have no record of any patient by that name during those dates. No surgeries, no admissions, no emergency room visits, nothing. My hands started shaking. If Brittany was never in the hospital, if there were never any surgeries, if Kevin had been lying for months, then where had $340,000 gone? I hung up the phone and stared at my empty kitchen. Eleanor's coffee mug still sat in the cabinet where I'd left it 5 years ago. Her reading glasses still lay on the counter next to her favorite crossword puzzle book. Everything in this house represented a lifetime of modest living and careful saving, all so we could help children who needed it most. And my son had stolen it all, based on lies. I called Kevin immediately. He answered on the first ring, which surprised me. Dad, how are you doing? I was just thinking about... Kevin, I need to ask you about Brittany's surgeries. Pause. What about them? I called the hospital. They have no record of her ever being a patient there. Longer pause. Dad, you must have called the wrong hospital. You know how forgetful you've been since Mom died. Maybe you should write things down. That's when I realized Kevin wasn't just a liar. He was a gaslighter. He was trying to make me doubt my own memory, my own sanity, my own ability to understand what was happening to me. The hospital had no record of any surgery. Patricia Williams had known our family for 20 years. She'd processed Eleanor's final medical bills, helped me set up the scholarship fund, and always treated us with respect. When I called and asked for a meeting, she agreed immediately. Harry, you sounded upset on the phone. What's going on? I showed her the hospital records. No surgeries. No patient named Brittany Mitchell. No emergency admissions. Patricia's face grew grim as she pulled up my account history on her computer. Harry, I need to show you something that's going to be very difficult to see. She turned her screen toward me. 47 withdrawals over 18 months. But it wasn't just the medical emergency money. Kevin had been systematically draining my account in smaller amounts too. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, 15,000 for car repairs, 20,000 for job training programs. These withdrawals follow a pattern, Patricia explained. Small amounts first to test whether you'd notice, then gradually larger amounts as confidence grew. This is textbook financial elder abuse. Elder abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. I was 67 years old, and my own son was systematically stealing my retirement savings. There's something else, Patricia said quietly. Kevin came in last month asking about your other accounts. Life insurance policies. Investment portfolios. He said you were getting forgetful and he needed to help manage your finances. I told him he'd need power of attorney documentation for that kind of access. My blood ran cold. What did he say? He said he was working on getting the paperwork. Power of attorney. If Kevin could prove I was mentally incompetent, he could gain legal control over all my finances. Not just the joint checking account, but everything. My pension, my Social Security, the life insurance payout from Eleanor's death, the small investment account we'd built up over 4 decades of teaching. But I wasn't mentally incompetent. I was sharp, alert, and now completely aware of what was happening. Kevin wasn't just stealing from me. He was planning to take everything. Patricia, I need your help. What are my options? She leaned forward. First, we file a report with Adult Protective Services. Elder financial abuse is a felony in this state. Second, we freeze all your accounts immediately to prevent further theft. Third, we preserve all the evidence of unauthorized withdrawals. Will the police investigate? They'll have to. $2 million isn't petty theft, Harry. This is major fraud. I thought about Kevin as a little boy, embarrassed about our profession, but still proud when Eleanor and I got Teacher of the Year awards. I thought about all the times I'd bailed him out of financial trouble, believing his stories about bad luck and temporary setbacks. I thought about Brittany's shopping posts, documenting her luxury lifestyle funded by money stolen from disabled children's scholarships. Do it, I said. File the report, freeze the accounts. Start the investigation. Patricia nodded and began typing. There's one more thing you should know, Harry. You're not Kevin's first target. She pulled up another file. 3 other retired teachers in this county have reported similar thefts in the past year. Large amounts stolen by family members using medical emergency stories. We think there might be a pattern here. 3 other teachers. Kevin wasn't just betraying me. He was part of something bigger. Patricia showed me something that changed everything. Detective Maria Rodriguez looked like she could bench press a school bus, but she spoke with the gentle patience of a teacher. When she arrived at my house the next morning, she carried a thick folder and a digital recorder. "Mr. Mitchell, I've been investigating elder financial abuse cases for 12 years. What happened to you fits a specific pattern we've been tracking." She opened the folder and spread out photographs, bank statements, transaction records, phone logs. In the past 18 months, 4 retired educators in this county have lost their life savings to family members. Total theft, over $6 million. In every case, the theft began with a medical emergency story. In every case, the perpetrator had legal access to joint accounts. In every case, the money was used to fund shopping addictions and luxury lifestyles. I studied the photos. Are you saying Kevin is part of some kind of organized scheme? That's exactly what I'm saying. But here's where it gets interesting. Your son didn't figure this out on his own. Someone taught him the system. Someone who understands banking regulations, elder law, and how to exploit family trust relationships. Detective Rodriguez pulled out her phone and played a recorded conversation. "Kevin? It's working perfectly. The old man never suspects anything. Just like you said, teachers are too trusting. We've got maybe 6 months before he notices the bigger withdrawals." Kevin's voice was unmistakable, but he was talking to someone else, someone who was coordinating these thefts. "We'll get the power of attorney paperwork next month. Once we have legal control, we can take everything. The house, the investments, even his Social Security checks. These old teachers saved everything for their stupid students. We deserve it more than they do." I listened to my son's voice describing me as a target to be exploited, talking about stealing my house, planning to control my Social Security checks, referring to the disabled children I'd devoted my life to as stupid students. "There's more," Detective Rodriguez said. "We believe your daughter-in-law is the ringleader. Brittany Mitchell has been documenting the thefts on social media, but she's been clever about it. She posts shopping hauls and luxury purchases, but she never mentions where the money came from. We think she's using Instagram to recruit other people into this scheme. She showed me Brittany's Instagram account. Hundreds of posts showing designer clothes, expensive jewelry, luxury vacations. Each post included hashtags like #blessed, #livingmybestlife, #husband provides. But buried in the comments were conversations with other women asking how they could get their husbands' families to be more generous. Brittany has been teaching other people how to steal from elderly family members, Detective Rodriguez explained. She's turning elder abuse into a social media trend. My mouth went dry. How many people are involved? We're not sure yet, but we've identified at least 12 families who've been targeted using identical methods: medical emergencies, joint bank account access, power of attorney manipulation, and in every case the stolen money gets spent on luxury items that get posted on social media. Detective Rodriguez closed the folder. "Mr. Mitchell, I need your permission to use your case as bait. We want to let Kevin and Brittany continue their plan while we gather evidence. Can you handle pretending that you don't know what's happening? Could I handle it? Could I look my son in the eye knowing he was planning to steal my house? Could I listen to Brittany talk about her shopping trips knowing she was spending money meant for disabled children? What do you need me to do? Act normal. Don't change your routine. If Kevin asks for more money, give it to him, but we'll be monitoring every transaction. If he tries to get you to sign power of attorney documents, call me immediately. We need him to commit more crimes while we're watching." She handed me a small device. "Voice recorder. If Kevin or Brittany say anything incriminating, press this button. But be careful. If they suspect you know what's happening, they might escalate quickly." That evening, Kevin called. "Dad, how are you feeling? You sounded stressed yesterday when we talked about Brittany's medical bills." "I'm fine, son. Just worried about your wife." "That's so sweet of you, Dad. Actually, Brittany's doctor wants to try a new treatment. It's expensive, but insurance should cover most of it. We might need another $20,000 just temporarily." $20,000 for imaginary medical treatment, while Detective Rodriguez listened on a tapped phone line. "Of course, Kevin. Family comes first." "You're the best dad ever. Oh, and Dad, I've been thinking we should update some of your legal paperwork. You know, just in case something happens. Would you be willing to meet with a lawyer about power of attorney stuff? Kevin called me screaming about the frozen account." The family meeting was Brittany's idea. She wanted to clear the air about the misunderstanding with the bank. They arrived at my house on a Sunday afternoon with takeout food and concerned expressions. "Dad, we're so worried about you," Kevin said, setting Chinese containers on Eleanor's dining room table. "This whole thing with the bank has us really scared." Brittany nodded sympathetically. "We think someone might be taking advantage of you financially. Elderly people are targeted by scammers all the time." I watched them perform this elaborate charade of concern while Detective Rodriguez's recording device captured every word. They were going to try to convince me that I was the victim of fraud committed by someone else. "The bank manager said you've been asking questions about Brittany's surgeries," Kevin continued. "Dad, I think your memory might be getting a little fuzzy. You called the wrong hospital. Brittany was treated at University Medical Center, not Regional Hospital." Brittany pulled out her phone. "I can show you the medical bills if that would help put your mind at ease." She scrolled through what looked like official hospital documents on her screen, but I'd been a teacher long enough to recognize fake homework when I saw it. "These bills show I had 3 surgeries last year," Brittany explained. "Appendicitis complications, then a secondary infection, then corrective surgery. It was a nightmare, but your son took such good care of me." I nodded thoughtfully. "That must have been terrifying for both of you." "It was," Kevin said. "That's why we're so grateful for your help with the medical expenses. I don't know what we would have done without you." "And that's why we want to make sure you're protected," Brittany added. "Scammers target people exactly like you, Dad. Retired teachers, widowed, living alone. They probably studied your routine and figured out when you'd be vulnerable. The gaslighting was masterful. They were rewriting history in real time, turning themselves into the heroes and me into a confused old man who needed their protection. We've been talking to a lawyer about setting up some safeguards for your finances," Kevin said. "Power of attorney documentation so that if anything ever happens to you, someone trustworthy can manage your accounts." "Someone like family," Brittany added sweetly. This was the moment Detective Rodriguez had warned me about, the power of attorney trap. If I signed those documents, Kevin and Brittany would have legal control over every penny I owned. "That's very thoughtful of you both," I said carefully, "but I'm feeling pretty sharp for an old guy. Maybe we should wait on the legal paperwork." Kevin and Brittany exchanged a look. A flash of annoyance crossed Brittany's face before she composed herself. "Dad, we just want to protect you," Kevin pressed. "What if something happened and you couldn't manage your own affairs? What if you had a stroke or developed dementia? We need to plan ahead." "Your husband is right," Brittany said. "Besides, don't you want to make sure your money goes to the right people when you're gone? To family who actually cares about you, instead of those—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Instead of those special needs kids you're always talking about. I mean, it's sweet that you want to help them, but blood is thicker than water, right?" Something dark flickered in her eyes when she mentioned the disabled children I'd taught. Not just indifference, active contempt. "Tell me more about how you feel about special needs kids," I said quietly. Brittany's mask slipped completely. "Honestly, I think it's weird how obsessed you are with them. Those kids take resources away from normal children who could actually make something of themselves. And the way you talk about them like they're your real family, it's creepy." Kevin looked uncomfortable but didn't correct his wife. "I mean, look at the facts," Brittany continued. "You've spent 40 years and $2 million on kids who will never contribute anything meaningful to society. Meanwhile, your actual son struggles financially because you'd rather throw money at retards than help your own family." The word hit me like a slap. Retards. She'd used the word retards to describe children I'd devoted my life to helping. "Those kids include Tommy Chen, who's now a successful lawyer," I said slowly, "and Sarah Rodriguez, who became a physical therapist, and Marcus Johnson, who's a social worker helping other special needs families." "Whatever," Brittany shrugged. "They're still taking money that should go to us. I'm tired of living like we're poor while you fund scholarships for genetic mistakes." Kevin finally spoke up. "Brittany, maybe that's enough." "No, it's not enough," she snapped. "I'm tired of pretending I think your dad's charity work is noble. It's a waste of money and a waste of time. Those freaks don't deserve college educations. They should be in institutions where normal people don't have to look at them." She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through photos. You want to know what I really think about your precious students? Let me show you my latest shopping hauls. The screen showed videos of Brittany trying on designer clothes and jewelry, but as she narrated each video, she mocked disabilities, walking with an exaggerated limp while showing off new shoes, speaking in a slurred voice while displaying expensive makeup, making jerky hand movements while modeling jewelry. "This is what I do with the money you save for those freaks," she said proudly. "I buy beautiful things for beautiful people. That's how the world should work." I stared at this woman who had married my son, who had lived in my house, who had eaten at my table, and who was using money stolen from disabled children to fund videos mocking their disabilities. "Kevin," I said quietly, "do you agree with your wife?" My son looked at the floor. "Dad, I just think family should come first." Then Brittany said something unforgivable. Detective Rodriguez arrived at my house at 6 the next morning with backup officers and a search warrant, but I'd already done the math. Kevin and Brittany weren't just stealing from me. They were part of a systematic scheme targeting retired teachers throughout the county. "We've identified 11 victims so far," Detective Rodriguez explained as her team documented evidence. "But here's the thing, Mr. Mitchell. We think there are dozens more, maybe hundreds." She showed me a map with red pins marking locations across 3 states. Every pin represents a retired educator who's reported significant financial theft by family members in the past 2 years. The pattern is identical. Medical emergency stories, joint account access, power of attorney manipulation, and social media documentation of luxury purchases. It's a network? It's bigger than that. We think Brittany Mitchell and her associates have created a training program. They're teaching people how to steal from elderly family members and get away with it. Detective Rodriguez pulled out a laptop and showed me a private Facebook group called Family Financial Freedom. Over 3,000 members. The posts were disguised as advice for managing elderly parents' finances, but the real content was step-by-step instructions for financial elder abuse. "Look at this post from Brittany," Detective Rodriguez pointed to the screen. "She's teaching people how to forge medical documents, how to backdated power of attorney paperwork, how to gaslight elderly victims into questioning their own memory." I read Brittany's post with growing horror. She'd turned stealing from old people into a social media business model. Her followers called her a financial freedom guru and paid her for private coaching sessions on maximizing family resources. "She's been selling courses on how to steal from grandparents?" I asked. "Courses, private coaching, even merchandise. She calls it multi-generational wealth management, but it's organized elder abuse disguised as financial advice." Detective Rodriguez scrolled through more posts. "Here's where it gets personal to your case. 3 months ago, Brittany posted a detailed case study about a typical target. Widowed retired teacher, joint bank account, no children except one unsuccessful son, over $2 million in savings earmarked for charity. The case study was about me. Brittany had turned my life into a training manual for other financial predators. The post has over 800 comments, Detective Rodriguez continued. Other people sharing their success stories about stealing from elderly family members. Teachers seem to be popular targets because they're typically trusting and focused on helping others. I thought about my former colleagues. How many of them were being targeted right now? How many were being gaslit by their own children into believing they were losing their memory? What can we do to stop this? We're working with federal authorities because the scheme crosses state lines. Wire fraud, conspiracy, organized criminal enterprise. But we need more evidence. We need to catch them in the act of recruiting new victims. Detective Rodriguez closed the laptop. "Mr. Mitchell, would you be willing to help us with a very dangerous operation?" "What kind of operation?" "We want you to attend one of Brittany's live training seminars. She's hosting an event next week called Maximizing Your Family's Financial Legacy. We believe she's going to teach people how to steal from their elderly relatives in person." The idea terrified me. Sitting in a room full of people learning how to abuse old people like me. Listening to Brittany teach them to use the methods she'd used on my family. "You'd be wearing a wire," Detective Rodriguez explained, "and we'd have undercover officers in the audience, but you'd be the primary witness to her training people to commit elder abuse. What if she recognizes me?" "She won't expect you there. According to her social media posts, she thinks you're a confused old man who doesn't understand what's happening to him. She's not expecting you to fight back. I thought about Tommy Chen, who'd overcome Down syndrome to become a lawyer, about Sarah Rodriguez, who'd built a career helping other disabled people despite her cerebral palsy, about Marcus Johnson, who'd transformed his autism into a superpower for helping special needs families. All of them had been underestimated. All of them had been dismissed as less capable than they really were. All of them had proven their critics wrong through quiet determination and careful planning. Detective Rodriguez, there's something you need to understand about special education teachers. We spend our entire careers figuring out how to help people who've been dismissed and underestimated. We know how to be patient, we know how to gather evidence, and we know how to protect the vulnerable. I walked to Eleanor's photo on the mantel. She was smiling in her favorite dress, surrounded by former students at her retirement party. Eleanor and I spent 40 years teaching children that their disabilities didn't define their limits, that with the right support and enough determination, they could accomplish anything. I turned back to Detective Rodriguez. I'll do it. I'll wear the wire. I'll sit in that room and listen to them teach people how to steal from teachers like me. But I want something in return. What's that? When this is over, when Brittany and Kevin and all their accomplices are in prison, I want the story to go public. I want every retired teacher in America to know how this scheme works. I want them to protect themselves and each other. Detective Rodriguez smiled. Mr. Mitchell, after what we're about to do, this story is going to be front-page news across the country. 3 other teachers had lost their retirement savings. Tommy Chen called me on Wednesday evening while I was preparing for the undercover operation. His voice was excited, urgent, like when he'd figured out a difficult math problem in my class 20 years ago. Mr. Mitchell, I've been researching Brittany's business model, and I think I found something big. Tommy was 32 now, a successful lawyer despite doctors who'd said children with Down syndrome couldn't handle complex reasoning. He'd proven them wrong every day for 2 decades. I accessed her corporate filings through the state business registry, Tommy explained. Family Financial Freedom LLC is registered in Delaware, but she's operating training seminars in 12 states. She's not reporting the income properly, and she doesn't have proper licensing for financial advice. What does that mean? It means she's committing tax fraud and operating without required professional licenses. But here's the really interesting part. She's partnered with a company called Elder Care Consulting Services. I'd never heard of them. What do they do? On paper, they provide legitimate services like estate planning and financial management for seniors. But I think they're actually supplying Brittany with lists of potential targets, widowed retirees with substantial savings, and adult children who might be susceptible to recruitment. Tommy had uncovered a pipeline. Elder Care Consulting identified vulnerable seniors, then connected their adult children to Brittany's wealth management training program. Mr. Mitchell, this isn't just a social media scam. It's an organized criminal enterprise with corporate structure and systematic targeting protocols. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another call. Sarah Rodriguez, my former student who'd become a physical therapist despite cerebral palsy. Mr. Mitchell, I need to tell you something urgent. My mother got a call yesterday from someone claiming to be from Elder Care Consulting Services. They wanted to discuss optimizing her financial legacy for her children. When I looked into the company, I found dozens of complaints from families who'd been targeted for financial abuse. This was happening in real time. While I was preparing to expose Brittany's operation, her associates were actively recruiting new victims. Did your mother give them any information? No, thank God. But Mr. Mitchell, they knew details about our family that they shouldn't have known. They knew I was a physical therapist. They knew my mother was widowed. They even knew approximately how much money she had in savings. Someone was providing Elder Care Consulting with detailed profiles of potential targets. Bank employees, insurance agents, financial planners. People with access to private financial information were selling data to elder abuse networks. My phone rang again. Marcus Johnson, my former student with autism who'd become a social worker. Mr. Mitchell, I've been tracking online discussions about elder financial abuse, and your name has come up in some very disturbing contexts. Marcus had an almost supernatural ability to detect patterns in complex data. His autism gave him analytical skills that neurotypical investigators often missed. What kind of contexts? Brittany Mitchell has been using you as a case study in private coaching sessions. She's been describing your exact financial situation, your psychological vulnerabilities, and the specific techniques she used to steal from you. But here's the concerning part. She's been taking credit for innovations in elder abuse methodology. What do you mean? She claims she invented the medical emergency scam. She claims she pioneered the power of attorney manipulation technique. She's positioning herself as an expert in financial elder abuse, and other people are paying her to learn her methods. Marcus paused, and I could hear him organizing his thoughts with the methodical precision that had made him successful, despite everyone's low expectations. Mr. Mitchell, I think you need to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. This isn't just about your stolen money. Brittany Mitchell has created a training academy for financial predators. She's teaching hundreds of people how to steal from their elderly relatives using the exact methods she used on you. That evening, Detective Rodriguez arrived with technical equipment and a strategy briefing. Tomorrow's operation is more complex than we initially planned, she explained. Based on intelligence from your former students, we believe Brittany's seminar will include live demonstrations of document forgery and psychological manipulation techniques. She handed me a tiny recording device disguised as a hearing aid. This will capture everything said within 15 feet. We'll also have 3 undercover officers in the audience posing as potential recruits. What if something goes wrong? Mr. Mitchell, you taught special education for 40 years. You spent every day managing unpredictable situations while protecting vulnerable people. You know how to stay calm under pressure. She was right. Teaching had prepared me for this in ways I'd never expected. Patience, observation skills, the ability to recognize manipulation tactics, the instinct to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. There's one more thing, Detective Rodriguez added. We've coordinated with federal agents in 4 other states. Tomorrow's operation is happening simultaneously with raids on elder care consulting services and 12 other associated businesses. We're taking down the entire network. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Eleanor, about the children we'd taught, about the teachers who were being targeted right now across the country. Somewhere, an elderly educator was being convinced by their adult child that they needed to hand over their power of attorney for their own protection. Somewhere, a retired teacher was authorizing a wire transfer based on a fake medical emergency story. I walked to my bookshelf and pulled out a photo album Eleanor had made during our last year together, pictures of former students who'd kept in touch, wedding photos, graduation announcements, baby pictures, Christmas cards. These were the real returns on our investment. Not the money Kevin and Brittany had stolen, but the lives that had been changed. The children who'd grown up to become productive, independent adults despite disabilities that were supposed to limit them. In a few hours, I would walk into a room full of people learning how to steal from elderly teachers. But I wouldn't be going alone. Tommy, Sarah, and Marcus would be monitoring the operation remotely. Detective Rodriguez and her team would be positioned throughout the building. And Eleanor's memory would be with me, reminding me that sometimes the most important lessons happen outside the classroom. Tommy had an idea that was pure genius. Brittany's Maximizing Your Family's Financial Legacy seminar was held at the Marriott downtown in Conference Room C. 53 people had paid $300 each to learn what Brittany called advanced wealth redistribution strategies for multi-generational families. I arrived early and took a seat in the back row, wearing the wire and trying to look like a confused old man who'd wandered into the wrong meeting. Detective Rodriguez had coached me on acting techniques, slouched posture, slower movements, occasional puzzled expressions. Brittany entered the room like a motivational speaker, perfectly dressed and radiating confidence. She didn't recognize me, which confirmed that she viewed me as such an inconsequential figure that my physical appearance hadn't even registered in her memory. "Good morning, wealth builders," she announced. "Today we're going to learn how to access financial resources that your families have been hoarding for generations." The audience was mostly middle-aged adults who looked like they came from comfortable backgrounds but wanted more. I recognized the type from parent-teacher conferences, entitled, resentful, convinced they deserved things they hadn't earned. "Let's start with a case study," Brittany continued, clicking to a PowerPoint presentation. "Elderly parent, financially conservative, over $2 million in savings, planning to give money to charity instead of family." Sound familiar? Murmurs of agreement from the audience. Here's what most people don't understand about the elderly, Brittany said. They're emotionally vulnerable, especially after losing a spouse. They want to feel needed and useful, and they're often intimidated by technology and complex financial systems. She was describing me. Every word was accurate, and every insight she shared had been gained through months of manipulating my grief and exploiting my trust. The medical emergency strategy works because it triggers their protective instincts, Brittany explained. You're not asking for money for yourself. You're asking them to save a family member's life. What loving parent could refuse? She showed slides with sample scripts. Phrases like life-threatening complications and experimental treatment create urgency. Always specify exact dollar amounts. It sounds more legitimate than round numbers. A woman in the front row raised her hand. What if they want to verify the medical information? Great question. That's why you always claim the emergency happened out of town, or over a holiday weekend, or at a hospital they're not familiar with. By the time they could verify anything, you've already secured the funds. Brittany clicked to the next slide. Phase 2, establishing systematic access. Once you've successfully obtained money for a medical emergency, you've proven the elderly person's willingness to prioritize family needs. Now you can begin regular requests for smaller amounts. She showed a timeline. Monthly requests of $5,000 to $10,000, always with reasonable explanations. Car repairs, job training, temporary cash flow problems. The key is consistency and believability. Another hand went up. How do you prevent them from getting suspicious about the frequency of requests? Excellent question. This is where psychological conditioning becomes crucial. You need to make them feel guilty for questioning your needs. Phrases like, I thought I could count on family, and you've never supported my dreams, are very effective. I listened to Brittany teaching people to gaslight their elderly parents, teaching them to weaponize love and guilt for financial gain. Phase 3, Power of Attorney Acquisition, Brittany continued. This is the advanced technique that transforms irregular theft into systematic wealth extraction. She displayed a sample power of attorney document. The key is timing. You approach this conversation when the elderly person is dealing with stress, illness, or major life changes. You frame it as protecting them from financial scams or medical emergencies. What if they refuse to sign? Someone asked. You plant seeds of doubt about their mental competency. Dad, you've been forgetting things lately. Mom, you seem confused about money. You make them question their own judgment until they're grateful for your help. The room was silent, absorbed in learning how to psychologically abuse their elderly family members. Now let me show you some advanced techniques for maximizing extraction once you have power of attorney, Brittany said, clicking to a new slide. The slide showed my exact bank account information, my real name, my real balance, my real transaction history. This case study involves a retired teacher who never realized how much money he was losing. Brittany smiled. Sometimes the best targets are people who've spent their lives helping others instead of helping themselves. The principal looked at Kevin and said something that changed everything. Kevin was wearing his best suit when he arrived at Sunshine Special School for his interview to become their new assistant principal. The school served children with developmental disabilities, and Kevin was hoping to convince them that his experience with special populations made him the perfect candidate. He didn't know that the principal, Dr. Amanda Foster, was Tommy Chen's cousin. He didn't know that 3 school board members were parents of children I'd taught. He didn't know that Detective Rodriguez was monitoring the interview from the parking lot. And he definitely didn't know that I was sitting in Dr. Foster's office with a complete recording of Brittany's financial abuse training seminar. Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Foster said warmly when Kevin entered the room, thank you so much for coming in. We're always excited to meet candidates who understand the special needs community. Kevin smiled confidently. Please call me Kevin, and I'm thrilled to be here. I grew up around special needs children because of my father's work, so I understand their unique requirements. Tell me about that experience, Dr. Foster said. What did you learn from your father about working with disabled children? Kevin launched into what sounded like a rehearsed speech. My father always said that every child deserves dignity and respect, regardless of their abilities. He taught me that with patience and understanding, special needs children can achieve remarkable things. He was quoting me. using my own words to get a job working with the population he'd privately called genetic mistakes and freaks. That's wonderful, Dr. Foster said. Can you give me specific examples of how you've applied those principles in your own work? Kevin hesitated slightly. Well, I've always tried to be supportive of my father's mission. I've seen how much joy these children bring to families, and how important it is to invest in their education. Investment is an interesting word choice, Dr. Foster noted. How do you think society should prioritize resources for special needs education? I believe every child deserves the opportunity to reach their full potential, Kevin said smoothly. That's why I'm so passionate about working in this field. Dr. Foster nodded thoughtfully. Kevin, before we continue, I'd like to play you something that I think is relevant to this conversation. She pressed play on her computer and Brittany's voice filled the room. Those kids take resources away from normal children who could actually make something of themselves. You've spent 40 years and $2 million on kids who will never contribute anything meaningful to society. Kevin's face went white. That's not. Where did you get that recording? There's more, Dr. Foster said, clicking to another audio file. Kevin's voice. I just think family should come first. Brittany's voice. Those freaks don't deserve college educations. They should be in institutions where normal people don't have to look at them. Kevin, Dr. Foster said quietly, the man you've been stealing from is Harold Mitchell. He taught my cousin Tommy, who's now a successful lawyer despite having Down syndrome. He taught Marcus Johnson, who's revolutionized autism support services in this state. He taught Sarah Rodriguez, who's helped hundreds of children with cerebral palsy learn to walk. Kevin tried to speak, but Dr. Foster held up her hand. Mr. Mitchell spent 40 years proving that children with disabilities can accomplish extraordinary things when given proper support and respect. You and your wife spent 2 years proving that some people without disabilities accomplish nothing but cruelty and theft. She opened a folder on her desk. These are letters from former students who heard about what you did to their beloved teacher. Lawyers, therapists, social workers, business owners, and artists, all people you and your wife dismissed as worthless. Kevin's hands were shaking. Dr. Foster, I can explain. You don't need to explain anything to me, she said. You need to explain it to Detective Rodriguez, who's waiting outside, and to the federal agents who are arresting your wife as we speak, and eventually to a jury who will decide how many years you'll spend in prison for elder abuse, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The door opened, and Detective Rodriguez entered with 2 officers. Kevin Mitchell, you're under arrest for financial elder abuse, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit organized theft from elderly persons. As they handcuffed Kevin, Dr. Foster stood up from her desk. There's one more thing you should know. The special needs community takes care of its own. When you attack someone who's devoted their life to helping our children, you attack all of us. She gestured to the window where Kevin could see the parking lot filling with cars. Parents of former students themselves, teachers who'd worked with me, social workers, therapists, lawyers. They're here to make sure justice is served, Dr. Foster said, and they're here to honor a man who spent his life teaching the world that every person has value and dignity, including people like you, Kevin, though you've certainly made it difficult to remember that. As Detective Rodriguez led Kevin away, he looked back at Dr. Foster with something that might have been remorse. Will you tell my father I'm sorry? No, Dr. Foster said simply. You'll have to do that yourself, if you can figure out how to mean it. What happened next restored my faith in everything I'd ever believed about human dignity. The call came from Tommy Chen at 6:47 p.m. on Friday, exactly 1 week after Kevin's arrest. His voice was excited in a way that took me back to his childhood breakthrough moments. Mr. Mitchell, you need to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I braced myself anyway. Eleanor left a secret trust. The words didn't make sense at first. Eleanor had been dead for 5 years. We'd gone through all her legal documents during probate. Her will was straightforward. Everything to me with the understanding that I'd use the money for special needs scholarships. Tommy, what are you talking about? I've been working with Eleanor's probate lawyer on something she set up without telling you. She created a separate trust in 2017, 2 years before she died. She called it the Character Test Trust. My hand started trembling. Eleanor never mentioned any secret trust. She didn't want you to know about it unless it became necessary. Mr. Mitchell. Eleanor suspected Kevin might try to steal from you someday. Eleanor, my wife of 35 years, the woman who died in my arms, whispering that she loved me and trusted me to carry on our mission. She'd been protecting me even after death. The trust contains $750,000, Tommy continued. Life insurance policies Eleanor took out secretly, plus investments she made using her teacher's pension contributions. All of it earmarked specifically for special needs education scholarships. $750,000 that Kevin never knew about. Money that Brittany couldn't steal, couldn't access, couldn't touch no matter how many power of attorney documents she forged. But here's the beautiful part. Tommy's voice was getting emotional. The trust had conditions. It would only be activated if you were ever victimized by financial elder abuse committed by a family member. Eleanor had seen this coming. Somehow she'd known that Kevin's resentment and entitlement might eventually turn into actual theft. She'd planned for it, prepared for it, and left me a way to continue our mission, even if the worst happened. There's more, Tommy said. When news of your case went public, former students started calling. Everyone you and Eleanor ever taught who's now financially stable wants to contribute to a memorial scholarship fund. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was telling me. Sarah Rodriguez is organizing a fundraising campaign. Marcus Johnson is handling the legal structure. Dr. Foster is coordinating with schools across 3 states. We're going to create the largest special needs scholarship fund in the region's history. How much money are we talking about? Over $2 million so far, and the contributions are still coming in. Mr. Mitchell, you're going to be able to give more scholarships than ever before, all because the people you helped wanted to help you back. That evening, I sat in Eleanor's favorite chair and read the letter she'd left with the secret trust documents. Her handwriting was shaky from the ALS, but her words were clear. My darling Harry, if you're reading this, then our son has broken both our hearts. But you need to know that the children we taught will never let you down the way Kevin has. Trust them. Let them help you. Let them show you that the love you gave them has come full circle. The money Kevin stole was just money. The legacy you built with those children is eternal. Keep teaching, my love. Keep believing. Keep helping. Eleanor. Kevin was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Brittany got 12 years and was ordered to pay full restitution. Elder Care Consulting Services was shut down permanently, and 43 people across 12 states were arrested as part of the network. But more importantly, the Eleanor Mitchell Memorial Scholarship Fund awarded its first grants 6 months later. 50 disabled students received full college tuition support. Sometimes the best lessons happen outside the classroom.